This podcast is produced by the Harwood Productions Podcast Network. To learn more about the network and to find more of our shows, visit us online at www.harwoodpodcast.com.
Hi, I'm Cindy Harris, and today I'm making some California tea sandwiches. These tea sandwiches use a lot of the fresh ingredients that are found here in California. Fresh tomato, avocados, sprouts, and a little bit of cream cheese. It makes for a really wonderful tea sandwich. Now, when you make these tea sandwiches, you have a couple of choices for bread. One is a wheat bread, and then the other is a sourdough bread. They both taste great for this sandwich. Now, you can choose one or the other, or many times what I do is I use both, and the colors of the bread look really nice on the tea tray. Now, for each sandwich, we need 2 slices of bread, but I do want to trim the crust, so I'm going to stack the bread on top of each other, and I'm going to get a non-serrated knife, and I'm going to trim those edges. After you trim your bread, you end up with all of these crusts. And instead of just throwing them out, what I do is I put them in a zip bag and I put them in the freezer. And then when I need fresh breadcrumbs for another recipe, I just pull these out of the freezer and process them in my food processor, and I get great fresh breadcrumbs. Now we're going to start getting the filling for our tea sandwiches. So I'm going to open up my bread like this, and on each side I'm just going to put a little dollop of a light mayonnaise. Now, mayonnaise is really a handy thing for tea sandwiches because it makes almost like a barrier, so any of the wet ingredients, it kind of stops them and they don't get into the bread and make the bread too soggy. On top of the mayonnaise, we're going to put a little bit of cream cheese. Now, I'm using a light cream cheese. It's a 1/3 fat, and the reason I like to use this is that it's a little bit softer than the full fat cream cheese. So I'm just going to take a little bit of that and spread it on top of each of the pieces of bread. Next, I want to add some sliced avocado. So this is a nice soft avocado, and I'm going to cut it in half, twist it, and then I'm going to take a large spoon and I'm going to scoop this out in one piece like this. Then I'm going to turn it upside down on my board, and I'm going to slice it in some nice thin slices. Then I'm going to take these slices and I'm going to lay them on top of the cream cheese. And I'm going to take and lay about 4 slices right down the center of the bread, but I'm only putting this on 1/2. I'm leaving 1/2 plain. And I'm going to do the same thing with some thinly sliced tomato. Now, for these, you probably just need a couple of slices. Those are going to go right on top of the avocado. And the reason I like to do that is the acid in the tomato will help the avocado from oxidizing and turning brown. On top of the tomato, I'm going to put just a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. And then the last ingredient is some fresh sprouts. Now, these are a clover sprout, but you could use an alfalfa sprout or any kind of fine sprout that you find in the market. And I'm going to just put a couple of pinches right on top of that tomato. Then it's time to take our top piece and press it right on top, just like this. Now, these are way too big for a tea sandwich, so I do want to cut them, but I always, again, look at the shape of the bread and see what kind of unique shapes that I can get. I see 2 squares, so I'm just going to take my knife, I'm going to hold down the bread carefully, and I'm going to cut through it so I get 2 nice square tea sandwiches. But on the wheat bread, I don't see this 2 squares. I see that as too much, but what I see are fingers. So I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to make 2 cuts into some finger-sized tea sandwiches like this. Looking at the bread and seeing what kind of shapes you can get really makes for a nice and interesting tea tray. Now, if you're not going to be using your tea sandwiches right away, here's a great way to store them. I just have a plate. I'm going to take my sandwiches and lay them on here. And then I have a paper towel that I've run under the water and I've squeezed it out really, really well. It's not dripping, it's just barely damp. I'm going to lay that on top of my sandwiches. And then I'm just going to put a piece of plastic wrap over the top. Now, if you store your sandwiches like this in the refrigerator, you can keep them for a couple of hours. That way you can make them ahead and then they're ready to serve when your guests arrive. Now, if you'd like to try these California tea sandwiches at home, just go to our website and visit the Come for Tea show notes page, and I'll have the recipe there for you. And as always, if you have any questions, please send me an email. I'll see you next time.